Comencem aquesta segona part del matí en dues intervencions que fan referència al marc europeu d'educació superior, dos exemples d'universitats de les arts en estructures, com comentava a la introducció, diferents. La primera persona en intervindre serà la professora Wilma Franchimon, que és presidenta de la Junta Executiva de Codarts Rotterdam als Països Baixos. I el segon en intervindre és Andre Zogholy. It's okay, Zogholy? Yes? Okay. Que és cap del Departament d'Investigació d'Art de la Universitat d'Art i Disseny de Linz a Àustria. Thank you for coming on behalf to the Catalan Art Councils. I will say thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentations and thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. I'm sure that it will be really helpful for our project. Moltes gràcies. Ells tenen la paraula i it's your turn.
Thank you. It will almost start. The first slide. And that was that. No, that's good. Hello, my name is Wilma Franchimon. I thank you very much for inviting me. And I brought two colleagues. That's Joost van der Veen. He's my board advisor. He made a presentation, by the way, so thank you, Joost. And Rob Brook, he's the director of the master program for the conservatoire and many other things. And he speaks Spanish and a little bit of Catalan. I speak English. So what you see here, we just go through this quite quickly, is this is our main building. We have 3 buildings and several other ones also with the university together. I will get to that later. This is near the central station. And within 3 weeks, we will have the Elia conference in Rotterdam. So if you still want to come, please be invited. Very good. Of course, you probably saw that's Paco Peña. He's been teaching at our conservatory for over 25 years now, and with students and other teachers. So we have this special program on Sunday on Dutch television where they make a big thing out of the World Music Department of Codarts. So for us, that's really nice. What I will, if I talk too quickly to translate, please give a shout and I'll just reduce the tempo. I will talk a bit about the art education in the Netherlands, recent changes, and then I'll end with Codarts and the new developments over there, because I think they might interest you. In Holland, as you already said, we have the binary system. That means that we have the universities of research, and then we have the universities of applied science. That's the lighter form of research, with due respect, mind you. And in fact, we should call ourselves University of Applied Science in Arts. Now, of course, we don't do that. So we say, and we are allowed to say that, we are University of the Arts in Rotterdam. It's a higher professional system where we are in. So as you already explained, we have a 4-year bachelor and then a 1 or a 2-year master. And I'll get later to the PhD, which we do together with several universities. But our preferred partner is Erasmus University in Rotterdam. There are 12 art universities. We are on our own, so we can move around as quickly as we want to. But there are also art universities included in a bigger University of Applied Science, and they have far more restrictions. So as long as we can keep it on our own, we are really happy. We are funded by the government, paid by the government. We have, of course, special rules. We are allowed to make a selection for the students. For example, in Rotterdam, almost 4,000 international students want to get in. Our percentage of international students is, by the way, more than 60%. Some of the academics even have a higher number, like the dance. We have a very famous modern dance department, and over 90% of the students are international students. So we can select because, like in 2010, there was made a rule by the government, together with the boards of the universities at that time, that there was a limit to the amount of art students to get in. For Codarts, for example, the limit is 1,200. Can't get any higher, except if we do something special. As I said, I will get to that later. We have accreditations every 6 years. It's an expert panel. So the people in the panel for the accreditation need to know the business of the arts. We don't let anyone in with non-knowledge of the arts whatsoever. We have 20,000 students in art, and that's about 4% of the total of students. As Joost wrote down, low salaries, but that's mostly for the people in the fine arts. But very low unemployment. What we see now is that we have the political pressure to limit the students in the bachelor and invest more in the master, which we all do, by the way, but you need to have bachelor students to get master students. It's quite a simple sum, in my opinion. And what we made with the Arts Institute, because you really have to be very careful and very aware that every day now there can be a new rule that says, arts, what do we need it for? So what we did was we made a sector plan, and we developed our own plan for 4 years, and we got 20 million euros for that, and it finishes 2020, yes. And the subjects were like what you can read. Then what we do is the students are financed. So they have to pay, not the international ones, but the European ones pay 2,000 euros per year. And our finance for the students is more than 20,000, because what we have is, we are a University of the Performing Arts, but we have also the arts education and the arts therapies. What they did now, the government, is they cut the financing of the students through the students, and the money we get to invest in quality. And whatever that quality is, it might be in buildings, it might be in more teachers, in a different program, in IT. We can make that choice ourselves with the students. And at Codarts, Joost is running that project. Plans are drawn up now by individual university with unique selling points. We have, for example, unique selling point in health. We have a very big department in health, and that's our unique selling point. There's also a lecture on it. You will see that later. Okay. As you can see, I already told that. Well, we have a bit more students now. 90 from Spain, mostly in music. Profile is that we are interdisciplinary crossover, we are performing and we are connecting to the city and entrepreneurship. We have, and you can see that I think in one of the next slides, very low, non-measurable non-employment. 200 Erasmus applications, the RESL partnership, I'll get to that later. Now you can see this is not every university of applied sciences, but as you can see at Codarts, we have a non-measurable unemployment. Oh, I can do that. Huh? Where's that? Where's that red dot?
Yeah, this one.
That one.
This.
That one. Oh. Yes. Here we are. Unemployment not measurable. Of course, we hit every student to do a good study and get a job. Not always in the arts, by the way. Then here it says 59% would go back to Codarts, to the same education. So they were sort of happy. This is 29, and the 29% will do a follow-up on the study. And that's also very high, as you can see. There's one more, Haas Hogeschool. And this is, what do you say here? 81% makes a good connection with a followed study or a followed job. So we have quite good numbers and are very proud of that. Now, are there too many international students? That is at the moment at the government a big issue, because if you're Dutch, you need to be Dutch. We all need to have Dutch students, which is of course ridiculous. Because, for example, for us, our working field is an international working field, not probably for every department, but for most of them. And like in Holland, I mean, it's a very international country, always has been, always will be. But it's a big issue nowadays, like everywhere in Europe, unfortunately. Well, as I said, what is a good selection? You can't compare the one discipline with the other discipline. Please climb that tree. We love it. Now, this is what I really want to talk about. Because what we did, this is our 4th year, is we made a very good connection. We already had a connection with the University of Fine Arts, the Willem de Koning in Rotterdam. So together we have a bit less than 4,000 students. And what we did is we made a very big connection with Erasmus University. And the thing is, what made it very special is that they really wanted to make the connection. They wanted us to form a special institute, and it's called RESL. And RESL is Rotterdam Arts and Science Lab. Because as we also say in Rotterdam, that every artist, or probably every human being, has a natural inquisitiveness. So you're curious, you want to know about things, even if it is, where's the next baker? But how do you combine this? So we formed RESL, and we got permission by the Minister of Education which was really special because it's not allowed in the binary system to combine a University of Research and a University of Applied Science. And we did. And what we said is what it will get is the wonder if you put arts and science together. So we have these three working fields. One is the double degree, and the double degree is like you have students, as you mentioned already, you have students from the University of Research and the University of Applied Science, in this case of the arts, and they not only combine the studies, but they have an integrated curriculum. Not officially allowed in Holland. But they told us that we could try. We are like a pilot. So that is what we do. That's what we do now. And the most important partner in that, of course, is the University of Research. Then we have the one creative learning, and that means that there we do the innovation in education. And we have the interdisciplinary research. Now, what you can see here is what we are doing within RESL and also what kind of money we got besides the regular funding. So they applied for other streams of money, and like for this one, we have 490,000 we got extra with the GAMSIS. That's how to organize gaming in the and get other people to go into music, into the concert halls, and to connect to society, so that in the end we will get a more sustainable society. As you can see, it's every time together with Erasmus University, 500,000 euros. Now the biggest one is Pearl, and that's the one from the health. So how do you prevent injuries? And of course, if you are for the performing arts, you have the best patients to try it on. And we hope that whatever we find out, we'll bring it back to society. So there are now creating tools for even later on in life for us, just that we get to be aware and maybe even can prevent injuries for the normal people in society. And that's very an important part of Codarts, and of course the whole of Holland is looking at us at that part. Our lecturer Janine Stubbe is already quite famous and touring around Europe to tell about the projects. And the other one, that's about 1 million, that's with the big data and prevention, that's together under the same lectorate. So that's quite an amount. I'm always sorry to say. Now, what we are doing right now is we start in the bachelor with a certain research level. We let that grow and expand in the master, so that they can do a PhD. They can do that already, a PhD, together with Erasmus University, Leiden University, Antwerp University. But what we are trying to do now, there are two thinkways. One is there is a group of the art universities that are trying to develop a creative doctorate. So that's a special title in the arts. We are going the other way around. We say if you make a good connection with the research universities and you make the crossover, even integrate that, you can do the PhD, whether it is artistic research or whether it is scientific research. It should not matter. And we are allowed to do that. So what we hope is that the Minister of Education will allow us to make a special department, a special education, and then we call it the RESL education system, where the universities of applied science, of the arts, in our case, and the research universities are combined. They are joined, so that you don't have the discussion, I'm from the arts and I have this degree, and you are for the research university, you have that degree. Of course, there's a difference, because you have different studies and different study points. But we're going to do that. We did that with the bachelor already. We are going to do a Resol master. And this year we have, like, I think 3, Joost, Resol PhDs starting. So we pay for that all together. So Erasmus University pays for it, I pay for it, and Willem de Koning pays for it. And if it works, the Minister of Education is very pleased, because then we would have solved an enormous problem in Holland as well. And what I'm going to show you now is one of the students who is doing at the moment not the master but the bachelor. Yes?
I think music has something that everyone understands, but it's very personal as well. Lucas Vermeer, Chaka Khan, liberal arts and sciences and pop music, both. I've always been interested in music. I really wanted to spend most of my time creating music, and I think this study is the best way to develop myself creatively and intellectually. There are 2 very different worlds. Within those 2 bubbles, kind of, you really have the opportunity and the freedom to do whatever you want. This city is very new and provides musicians a very good environment to develop themselves. I don't really know if EUC has a direct link with my goal to become a musician, but I do think that EUC brings me a lot of intellectual development, and that's very useful in every business, but also in the music business.
So this is the next steps that we will make is the Resol PhDs. The other one is that we will make the connection with the Technical University in Delft, because we already have many students who do both, but not the double degree. So that's the next step. And the other next step that we just got funded is we made a call for the Comenius Scholarship, it is said, and that is where you take societal problems into the study. Students get study points for that, and you make the connection with society. So with the City Hall of Rotterdam, that's our next step. So we are front runners in this department in the Netherlands, so it could well go wrong, mind you. Of course, we're very optimistic. But the thing is, what we think we need to connect to both universities as society, because that's where we all come from. And I think if you are visible in society and in the universities of research, if you make the connection, not afraid to do that. And even though, really in Holland, it's difficult to do it, because the universities of research are standing over, most of them are standing over there, and they might want to talk to University of the Arts, but with Universities of Applied Sciences, it's much more difficult. So I think it's a really interesting and intriguing program that we're doing right now, and we'll see where it ends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I enjoy the discussion and the lovely city of Barcelona, even though it's raining. I'm sorry that I brought the bad weather with me, because usually in Austria we have bad conditions like these. So I'm not used to this weather in Barcelona. Anyway, I want to give you a brief overview over the University of Art and Design Linz, about the university system in Austria, and talk about systems and concepts, which mainly are written on paper on the one side, but on the other side also on the reality, on the real life, how we try to fill that papers with life. And I want to start with contextualization between history, social, cultural, economical, and political situation, especially when talking about our university in Linz. And the first picture is a picture of, now it's called First. It's about steel production. It was built, it started during World War II, and it's called Hermann Göring Werke. Afterwards, they were called First Alpine. And this is really interesting if you're talking about Linz, because before World War II, Linz was a fairly small town. It is still now a small town compared to Barcelona. We have 200,000 inhabitants. Maybe whole Austria could be compared to Catalonia. We have 7 million people living there. So when stretching out that point, we have to focus on the society, which is deeply connected to working class. So compared also in a cultural way, compared to cities like Salzburg or Vienna, Linz does not have a bourgeois tradition. So if you're asking where Linz is just right in the middle between Salzburg and Vienna. And if I talk about this working class tradition, compared to Salzburg and Vienna, we don't have this backpack, rucksack full of heavy stones like Salzburg has with Mozart. That's why their art university is called Mozarteum, or Vienna with very old opera houses. We don't have very old opera houses. We don't have Mozart. We have steel production, which also makes us kind of strong, because steel gives you power. So what is interesting in the history is that through that steel production, Linz was a really dirty, rough town until the 80s. And it changed in the late 80s, when everything became technically more sophisticated. All those high-tech industries were involved. And also, what is an interesting point, when talking about inhabitants, we have more jobs in the city of Linz than people living there. So we're in a pretty good situation economy-wise, even though the salaries in the art business are not the best, like Wilma said just before. So the next picture is a picture of the Ars Electronica Museum, the Museum of the Future, Museum of Digital Art. This whole thing started in 1979, and here you can see the new building of the Ars Electronica. It was finished in 2009 when Linz was European Capital of Culture. Inside there is not only a museum, but also it's called Future Lab, and perhaps somebody of you knows the annual Ars Electronica Festival, which is, of course, the biggest festival for media arts in the whole world. So that's Linz. That's not only important for Linz, but this is also important for the art university and the profile of our university when we're talking about media art and also media theory. For example, we have during the Ars Electronica Festival this campus exhibition where we do invite every year another university to be our guest and make usually great installations and exhibitions. And so we can refer to an international network over all these years. When talking about the historical context, I can show you this one. And it's connected to National Socialism. Here you see a bridge, it's the Nibelungen Bridge, which was built in the National Socialistic era. The stones and blocks for this bridge are from the concentration camp Mauthausen, which is in the near of Linz. On the left side you can see the river, it's the Danube. And in the background you can see two buildings. These buildings are the headquarters for our university, but the intention was another thing. So they were intended to be the main quarter for the Nazi administration in Linz. So this is a very important thing when we are talking about our university. As you know, World War II ended in 1945, and our university has its roots in the Kunstschule, the art school, which was funded initially by the city of Linz in 1947. It assigned academy status in 1973 and finally made a fully fledged university in 1989. In the year 1947, it was an explicit statement to signify the dissociation from the previous also art policy of the Nazi era. So this was and is a clear sign against National Socialism. In the past as in the present, these values form the basics and the basis, the essence and identity of our university for the freedom of art and against National Socialism and fascism. So this is for us not only a burden, this era, but also a chance. We hold up and connect it also from the ideas to Bauhaus with certain concepts of design, applied arts and connection not so far away from everybody, but connected to everyday life of society. So, as all public universities in Austria since January 2004, the university is constituted as a corporation under public law, according to this new Universities Organization Act of 2002, and so enjoys more or less a far-reaching autonomy. So this includes also new forms of financing and also new forms of quality management systems, which we had to build up during the last 15 years. So you have seen already two of our buildings. We are in other buildings as well because universities tend to grow during the years. What is interesting is we also have a dépendance. I'm looking for the laser. Yes, here. This is the former tobacco fabric, which is designed by Behrens and is really architectural highlight. I mean, you have so many highlights in Barcelona. We don't have so many in Linz, but this certainly is a highlight. So if you're coming to Linz, write me an email and I will show you these buildings. And we also have a dépendance in Vienna. This is the Internationales Forschungszentrum Kulturwissenschaften, which is a highly remarkable international center for cultural studies and is deeply connected also to our university. So, just some brief facts that you can see what we are talking about. In 2007, we had a budget of nearly 21 millions. It was mainly funded by the state for 19 millions. We had some third-party fundings, which is, with 700,000 euros, not too high. We were better in this, if you can say you're better in third-party funding. We are not a huge university. We have 550 employees. We are not a huge university. We have 1,400 students. We have much more female students than male students, and we have, I would say, many students compared to other universities from other countries, which makes us like more international in some ways also. There are so many more. If you're interested in facts, I mean, this is whole part of the quality management system. We have to write an annual report. It's the Capital Knowledge Report. It's also published in the internet, so there are a lot of statistics if you're into those data analysis. I think you know these data as well. So, and I already tried to talk about the context of the whole thing, because this is important for us, and it's both in a regional way when talking about Linz, the culture of Linz, the history of Linz, and the international context, what is meant by corporations and also the networks in the context of the regional and international frameworks and conditions within which our university operates. Hello. There have been three main orientations were evolved over the past 20 years, and they are important for artistic development, for research and teaching, and moreover should reflect somehow the unique profile of our university. And these are the three focuses: intermediality, space strategies, and artistic scientific research, art-based research. You can call it how you like. When we're talking about intermediality, we're not talking only about something like broad and, of course, high-quality media skills, how to operate the computer, how to cut the film. But on the other side, we try to be really top-level in terms of research and also educational programs in contexts of media, in contexts of art, and therefore we do not only cooperate with the already mentioned Ars Electronica Center, but with other universities and institutions. Space strategies refers to a step away from a single disciplinary study, and so we try to combine teaching and research in new ways. So we are strongly working on focusing on combining things like architecture, design, urbanism, and regional planning with ecology and also media. For example, we have a new curriculum for fashion and technology, which is in the space strategy. So you could ask, what has fashion and technology to do with those questions? Which is maybe a really good question, but we think it's really interesting in this context, because the students of fashion and technology, they are not only just designing and cutting some clothes and putting some nice LEDs inside, but they also do work with our lab for robotics, for example. So this is highly potential and very experimental, and we do like those experiments a lot. And the last focus would be the artistic scientific research, where we try to combine cultural studies, art theory, media theory, educational outreach, and communication strategies, as well as strongly gender studies in the context of artistic production. So this goes also further into what is called and discussed as art-based research. You can also strongly find that in our PhD program. We have a PhD curriculum for art-based research, and you can find that in many research projects where we try to go on and step those limits or push those limits for art-based research. To the organization, which is connected to these three focuses, you see 4 institutes and their departments. What I think is really interesting, because there was some discussion as well, and I think it makes sense. There's the first institute you see is Fine Arts and Cultural Studies. So you have things like painting, experimental art or sculpture, but you also can find cultural studies and art history, art theory in this institute. So the decision was not to make an extra institute for theory, but to bring them together also in our idea for art-based research. So this is, it works really good, I think. So we also have this Art and Education Institute. We also have the Institute for Media Studies, of course, and it's nearly the same like in Fine Arts. We also have the Media Theories in the Media Studies Institute, where you're not only hacking on those interfaces and making like tangible musical instruments, but you also have this strong connection to the theoretical approach. And we have the Institute for Space and Design. As I told you, for example, it's not only about architecture, it's not only about industrial design, it's also about robotics in a creative way, or fashion and technologies, or space and design strategies, where we're trying to find strategies in context of, for example, questions about public space. What does that mean? How you can work with that? So, built on that, we have our degree programs. So, as you can see, we have to differentiate between art studies and technical studies, and so on. That also has a lot to do with the Bologna process, so mostly it's bachelor, master, except, and I think that's also really interesting, you can see the first one, sculpture, experimental design, painting and graphic art. This is still a diploma program, because there were so huge protests against the Bologna thing from that point of view, and we could understand that, and also somehow the government understood that, and that's the reason why we still have these diploma programs, which would have not been possible if there would not have been a protest like this. But it's really interesting. Also on the right corner down, you see the PhD program. I already told you we are having this specific program since 9 years. It's highly attractive. We have about 80 students in this program, which is, for a small university as we are, huge number. Every year more and more are finishing this PhD, and we are really excited to see the outcome of this program, because everybody's talking about art and research, and there are so many discussions about these issues nowadays, not only in Austria but all over the world, I would say. And we say, okay, we try to do our best, and we want to see our best practices, and we try to analyze what could be a best practice in that mission. And when we are talking about the mission of the university, I would say we have 3 missions, which is, of course, the most important thing. It's about our students, it's about the teaching and studying. The second one is about research, and the third one is it's called the third mission, because there's so many things inside this. And I have 2 examples for teaching and studying, which I think are working really good. The one is the designs of our curriculums, which is connected deeply in, on the one side, clear guidelines, and on the other side, with a lot of discussions between the study commission, the curricular commission, between, and also the inclusion of professors, also the other teaching staff, and mostly important, the students, which are involved into all these processes and discussions. And that's why we think that the participation and integration of the Students' Union in all these processes is really very important. So you may ask, are there any fees for students? Actually, we don't have fees in Austria, except if you're a student from a third country, it's called like that, which means outside European Union, or students who have exceeded the standard period of the curriculum longer than 2 semesters. They have to pay tuition fee, which is 360 euros a semester. There are also, I mean, that's not, compared to UK, it's not too high, I would say, but we always said if there are fees, it's no problem for the government to raise them. So usually there were no fees in Austria. So it was a huge discussion in Austria when they introduced these low-level fees, but there are fees anyway. So we also have several models of study grants and loans. I cannot go into detail for this because this would take 2 hours or longer. If you're interested, I can send you some links. And as I said, for us it's very important that the students are participating in the university life and governments. So also the students are represented in the Senate and the Curricular Commission. Coming to the research, I already mentioned the PhD program, where we are saying that the students are not students, but they are early stage researchers. And this is combined with a lot of discussions and discourses about art-based research, of course, about methodologies, and our, I think, fruitful colloquias which we are having there. And when we are talking about funding programs in the context of art-based research, May could give you a good example. It's from the FWF, Fonds für Wissenschaftsförderung, Fonds for Scientific Funding in Austria. They have this program, it's called PEG, Program for Entwicklung, Erschließung der Künste. It's like a program for art-based research projects, which is running since 8 years. It's more or less really highly competitive. So the quota is like 8% for the applications. But if you get it, it's really a very, very good and interesting thing. You see this gray parrot, the picture. This is one of our projects within this funding program. Because we are trying to design musical interfaces and instruments for those parrots, which are highly individual on the one side and highly social. You can say a group of parrots, it could be, in this context, like a free jazz band. So everybody plays the instrument, but not on your own. You're also reacting to the things other people are playing. So it's also a communication process. It's also a process about social life. And so we are not just trying to design some fancy stuff for the parrots. We also try to analyze their social life, and they all have names. This, for example, this parrot is called Ludwig Wittgenstein, which I think is really funny. Also, what I think is really nice and important is if you can do research in a playful way. This also reminds me always of little childs. They want to have a look over there. They want to know this. And this is always combined in a playful way. And if you succeed in making your application in that way, then you get the 2 thumbs up because you have a lot of fun. So the third mission is connected to society and values. I told you before there is this high principle of anti-discrimination. We are actively opposed against discrimination based on gender, religion, age, and sexual orientation or disability. This is really very important to us, and we always have to stress that fact out. We also do support the Creative Commons and the Open Commons region Linz, because we also think that is deeply connected, this idea to questions of society. And another example would be the MORE initiative. This started in 2015. It's an initiative not only by our university, but as a cooperation between more universities, and is dealing with the question of refugees, where we want to integrate refugees at our university. We all know this won't solve our big question for what is going on in this context, but we want to give our best and yeah, at least it's something, because the refugees officially are not refugees, because they have the status students when they are in this MORE program, which is really good for them. So they can take part of courses, of course meet up with people from our university, from the artistic field, and we also offer language trainings. We have about 25 more students in this program. Another thing would be, the third mission would be the knowledge transfer, which might also be of interest for you. Since 2014, we have several projects within that center. This initiative for this program, for the knowledge program, for the funding of this program, came from the Ministry of Economics. So what has economics, the Ministry of Economics, to do with universities? One could ask. So they were interested in marketing and selling inventions and patents being done at universities. It was all, the discussion was about IPR, intellectual property right, and nobody was thinking about art university and their role in this context of knowledge transfer, like patents and so on. But we said, we want to be part of this knowledge transfer. We don't make huge inventions. We don't have too many patents. We have 0. We don't care about we care about IPR because we are in this open common movement. And finally, the government of economics said, oh yeah, why? Well, let's integrate the art university in this program. They can make some fancy looking websites for us. They can make some cool designs for folders and so on. And we said, no, that's not our issue. We are not about decoration or so. We are talking about this idea from Bauhaus. We are talking about a larger concept of design. And we started some programs which are highly interdisciplinary. One is called Kraftwerk. It's not the band, but it's in the middle of the tobacco factory. And actually it's called Kraftwerk because it was the huge heating system building for the whole factory. And we worked together with the Technical University in Upper Austria. In this project, next Tuesday, we're gonna have the big kickoff for this project. And another project we are doing is with, I have a book here. This is about cinematic communication of scientific research, where we are trying to make films out of these highly complicated inventions done at universities, but not in a usual way. So on the one side, we are saying it's not like you're in this role, somebody says, okay, make a film for me, and you're in this agency and write some plots and give it to them. But we are sitting together, so the artists and the inventors are sitting together in one table and developing a film, a narrative about this invention. For example, the first movie was a taxi ride, and the invention was something like the quarter pounder in Pulp Fiction, where John Travolta is talking about something like a hamburger. You just listen to this scene and you don't understand anything, but in our concept, the hamburger was a microplastic thing in cancer treatment, you know? So you could get an idea. I brought you some books about this project and give you. Again, this is also a very playful context to go into this field. Do I have some time left? 5 minutes. So I come to the boring part, which is about quality assurance and maybe the question about differentiation between universities. So we have this federal act in the organization of universities in Austria, and the interesting thing is it makes no difference between art universities and other universities such as technical-oriented universities. Of course, we all know there are differences, but all in all, when it comes to financing in Austria, we have this common sentence, no money, no music. So you have to deal with this. So how public funding is agreed, the state is obliged to finance the universities. It's within a performance agreement with the university, with each university for a period over 3 years. So this takes place every 3 years. The universities are negotiating, they are making a draft, and then they go into negotiations with the government. And all in all, for this, in the context of the budget, 80% of the total budget is the result of these negotiations between the university and the ministry. This is also about future-oriented aims. What are your goals? What are your achievements? What do you want to do in the next 3 years? This is heavily part of the negotiations. And about 20% of the global budget is bounded to indicators. They depend on performance indicators of the university to honor something like past achievements. The basic for these performance agreements are development plans which have to be done by the university, not every 3 years, but every 6 years. So this includes the strategies, the goals, and the focuses for the upcoming next 6 years for every university in Austria. So this is the basic foundation for the negotiations with the ministry. So there are some more or less heavy discussions in Austria, because I talked the indicator-bounded global budget now is like 20%. They want to raise this percentage to become more heavy-weighted to the indicators. Of course, the universities, every university calculated the indicators, and some said, yes, we want more indicator-bounded because they get more money, so they are not stupid. And other ones who get less money, they say, no, we don't want this. So this is right now, part of the discussion. We don't know how this will figure out. But during the next few months, I think we will be clearer about that. The question about how the university accounts for the results, each university has to write an intellectual capital statement. This document includes a narrative report about what happened the last year, and also includes indicators. In the beginning of this program, it was like 120 indicators, including, because I said there was no differentiation between universities and art universities, they took care of the art universities, and they had this indicator which was called number of artistic outcome in the past year. So you had a singular number like 450 for this indicator, which just said nothing, but you had to collect the data, which is a lot of work, and everybody knows it's like stupid. It has no, it just makes no sense if you have this number of artistic outcome there. Also, you could ask. Also, this indicator disappeared because even the government said, "Okay, you are right. This makes no sense," and So we now only have about 60 indicators, which is okay, and they are based on hard facts. So this is part of the report, and this is we have come a long way, but now it's okay. The role in quality assurance, according to this University Act, the universities are autonomous, and therefore they have to build their own quality management system. So that's the paper. Of course, there are a lot of other laws where there's written what is like the framework where you can move in your quality management system. But all in all, this is, I would say, yes, it makes sense if you see the next, or it does not make sense if you see the next one. These are the quality management instruments which are actively running at our universities, and you can see there are a lot of activities and instruments. Of course, we have the course evaluation by the students. Of course, we have research evaluation and documentation. Of course, we have surveys about graduates, which is like very important for us to monitor these questions. We also have a future project in this context with cooperation with the Public Employment Service, where we also want to discuss things like precarity, how we can react in detail in the curricula in these questions. But the most important and the core for the quality management system is the development plan, which is done by the university for the time of 6 years. It's the intellectual capital statements, which has to be done every year, which is like the narrative report and the indicator-based data, and every 3 years the performance agreements and the monitoring of this agreement with the ministry. Yes, so much more. Thank you.